Hello and welcome to the Victorious Living Solutions podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Nikeya Young. Thank you so much for joining today's show. As you all know, we have been talking about women in command. That is the theme for season 6. And we have been talking to some amazing women all season long. And today is going to be a continuation of that. We have with us in our virtual studio Dr. Kim Warren Martin. Welcome, Dr. Kim.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much. We're excited to have you. So, y'all, let me get into this bio because this woman is a powerhouse. Dr. Kim loves helping women who have a strong desire to do something meaningful and significant in the world. And they see that she helps them to see that it's not too late to be who they might have been or do what they might have done. She helps them to pinpoint the unique hidden difference they want to make, determine what it looks like, and create a custom strategy for how to get there. Her mission is to change the formula we currently use to do life so that she can help women reach their full potential from their area of greatest fulfillment. It's not about leaving your job, it's about making your mark. Dr. Kim's goals as a coach are to help high performing women discover their area of greatest fulfillment and leverage it to reach their peak potential without working long hours, jeopardizing relationships, or sacrificing personal time. Some of her accomplishments include changing the face of Intel. She positioned the corporation to attract and recruit more technical women via multiple initiatives. She achieved a 23% increase in women appointed to executive positions. She established a framework and created programs that focused on the development and advancement of senior level women with measurable results. She's a trusted advisor, frequently guiding diversity and employment resource group leaders at many other companies to help improve and or start programs. She's a bad sister, y'all. Dr. Kim. So
Thank
yay, she's a woman
you.
after our own heart. That's all that stuff we love over here at Victorious Living Solutions.
Well, thank you. I am very excited to be here. And it's interesting as you were reading that, my mind was going back to, some of those times and working on some of those programs and
Mhm.
projects. So I am really looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, we're talking about today's topic, y'all, is collaboration over competition. Collaboration over competition. So, let's get into it. We had a conversation. I had a webinar at the end of March. You guys know March was Women's History Month. And Dr. Kim was one of the attendees at that webinar. And we got into some really good discussion about just issues that we've all dealt with when we're working with other women and how we can be pitted against each other in this competition kind of, I call it scarcity mentality because that's what it is. Just the unique struggles that we've gone through as women to fight for our rights over the years, right to vote, equality, all of those things.
Yes.
And I talked about on there how anytime you have a marginalized group, be it women of color or just women in general, or anybody who has been historically not seen as equal, the competition gets even fiercer. Have you found that to be true as you've been working with these high-ranking, amazing women executives over the years?
Well, so that is a very interesting question. And I would say, yes, in some respects, I have found that to be true. What I think is really interesting is that, and this is something I just am so adamant about helping women to discover, and that is who you are.
Yep.
You are what you want and why. Those are
Yes.
three foundational keys to really getting clear on, get that clarity that you really need to determine, where you want to go next. I think in a lot of cases, I remember an experience with one of the projects, we were literally grooming and looking for women to get to the executive ranks and to get them to higher levels. And in some cases, it wasn't necessarily what they wanted. And there was one that I remember in particular where she said no, that she didn't want to get to the top. And for me, I was literally shocked
Wow.
because who doesn't want to get to the top, right?
Yeah.
You just think
Mm.
that. And I had to sit back and think, while Kim, this Global Women's Initiative manager, was thinking there's got to be something I can do to change her mind.
Yeah.
On the inside, Kim, the woman, had to sort of step back and realize there must be a reason why she is saying this. And so
Mm.
she had sort of scouted out the lay of the land and how it was going to fare for her family and all sorts of things like that. And so she opted out of that, whereas in other cases, it's all or nothing, all in, and it does become, super competitive. And I feel like we're made to think there isn't room for us,
Yeah.
right? There's a system, there's a narrative out there, and in our heads we talk about this glass ceiling. We know because we don't see as many women at the top as we would like to see, or how do I get there? And then the ones who get there, there becomes an additional level of maybe stress, if you will, because now
Yeah.
you don't not just have a job and a high position. And I think Sylvia Ann Hewlett, called them extreme jobs in her research. She's with the co-qual, it is now, it used to be the Center for Work-Life Policy and Center for Talent Innovation, and she called them extreme jobs. Well, not only do you now have an extreme job, but now you're expected to be a mentor
Yeah.
to other women to help to bring them up. So, and there are few there, but I still hold the belief that we bought into the narrative of the glass ceiling, and
Mhm.
therefore we started to perform as though it was not possible for us and it was not going to happen for us. And I tend to be somewhat of an idealist. I'm also realist, but I'm thinking that if it doesn't work here, then let's get creative. Let's figure
Mhm.
out maybe you need to move to a different division within the company. Like you said in my
Yeah.
bio, it's not about leaving your job, it's about making your mark. Maybe you
Mhm.
need to move to a different division. Maybe you need to look differently, expand your skills and things like that. So it's not such a competitive place to be. It really is more a cooperative place to be. And how do we help each other rise, And perhaps I see this in a lot of other cultures. They come together and they will say, okay, we're going to lift you up now. And then when you're there, then you come back and give back. And then we focus on someone else and we lift them. And then we focus and we lift them. And I think, more so in the US, what I've seen is it's me, now, now,
Oof.
versus, let's work together.
Mm.
And so some of the programs I worked on were like, let's work together to bring others up. And so, yeah, there is a competitive environment out there. And I won't sugarcoat it. I've seen
Mhm.
some really horror stories. I've
Mm.
even heard of horror stories after I, you know, stepped aside from the industry. I've heard of horror stories. People still call me up and tell me things,
Oof. Man.
and I'm like, I absolutely cannot, believe some of it because we still have this, I don't know, crab in the barrel mentality. If,
Mhm.
and that only one of us can be there. And that's not necessarily the case. And if you still take a look at women in top positions in corporate America, they finally broke the 20%, mark, because it was hovering somewhere between, 16, 17, down 15, 18, and it's above 20% now. But the challenge is, and McKinsey points this out in their research, is that it's very fragile. Why? Because there's a hole in the middle, because we
Mhm.
haven't been building up that pipeline to, replace leaders with leaders. And so
Yes.
while on the one hand, that's really great news, on the other hand, it is, I'm just sitting there going, no one leave your position. Everybody stay, stay. Because the numbers will change drastically if one person exits, it's
Yeah.
because we're so small. And what I would really love to see is women, bringing women up, whether it's in our traditional corporations or even doing it outside of those corporations. And so I've experienced with people doing both and really being able to make, you know, some headway and a bit of a difference. So, yeah. But it still
Awesome.
exists, it's there.
It's there. Oof. So let's talk about you because you are doing so many phenomenal things. Who would you say are some women who helped bring you up, like who were really instrumental in making Dr. Kim who she is today?
Well, I absolutely have to start in my family,
Okay.
and it's my mom and my grandmother. So well, both my grandmothers have passed away now, but my mom is still alive and kicking, so
Amen.
great there. And so my parents were very supportive. In fact, if you know my history from reading the rest of that bio, my parents decided to send me to engineering school while I wanted to sing and dance on Broadway and act in movies in Hollywood. That was my thing, right? So
Mhm.
they sent me to engineering school so I would always have a job and be able to take care of myself because I have three younger sisters. While sometimes in the career, I personally struggled. I did well in my career, but on the inside, I struggled because I felt like maybe what a square peg trying to fit into a round hole. I was very creative, yet very analytical. So, analytically creative and creatively analytical.
Mm.
And so at some point, managers started to notice that creativity, that, lack of fear of being in front of crowds or
Mhm.
in front of the camera. And so, I was called on to do a number of things which were really kind of fun and interesting to me, make corporate training videos and all kinds of things like that for programs I developed and be able to have training videos for customers. So it just went from there. And when I was ready to move away from the more technical roles into, I did sales engineering. I was a marketing manager, uh, promoting Intel's software development arm to the world. So the world knew we had a world-class R&D arm, for software, not just hardware. And when I moved from there, I moved into the diversity organization.
Okay.
And I just wanted to take a chance on, my more creative side. I figured, once you're an engineer, you're always an engineer, you can come back.
Mhm.
And so I have to give credit to my manager, Monique Hayward, whom I recently interviewed on a platform that we might discuss. So I recently
Mhm.
interviewed her, and then her manager as well, and her name is Rosalind Hudnell, and so she was the head of diversity, global diversity for Intel, and they allowed me to, spread my wings. I did
Okay.
things that I didn't ask permission for. I was willing to, say I'm sorry to accomplish the mission that was set before me to really help women to get to the top. My initial role was a horizontal role, working with all of the national engineering organizations like Society of Women Engineers, National Society of Black Engineers, Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, let's see, American Indian Science and Engineering Society, those groups. And then from there, I got a call one evening from my manager at the time and said, "Hey, we believe that you got this job. You can do it with a blindfold, one hand tied behind your back, and one foot cut off or whatever." So, we're thinking about you doing something different. So she presented to me this role of the running the women's initiative.
Okay.
And I said, I don't know, let me think about it. Right? I think that's not kind of where I was headed, because I said I can't be all things to all women, which ultimately became a joke because I kind of wound up at least servicing maybe not all in its entirety, but most women and women concerned in the corporation.
Okay.
So, being involved in different things, even benefits and all kinds of things like that. So, it literally was a phenomenal opportunity. It's interesting that you asked that question because about a year ago on my Instagram and Facebook, I took an opportunity to honor the women, all along the way who I felt like were instrumental in my life and in my career. And
Okay.
so I didn't actually get that put on LinkedIn, but I think it's still out there on, Facebook and Instagram. So I probably did about at least 20 different women,
Mhm.
friends, colleagues, mentors, different things like that. So it's been a journey, a wonderful
Nice.
journey.
I love it. I love it. I love it. We all have women, we have stories of women who, where would we be without them? Because
Yeah.
they saw our gifts, they nurtured them, they pulled us up. And then many of us have stories of the exact opposite, where women saw our talent, they didn't like it, they felt threatened by it, and they did whatever they could to try to keep us
Yeah.
down. Do you have any experiences like that that you don't mind sharing? Or maybe you don't. I don't know.
Of course, I have a few of those experiences. And the one that comes to mind first was a colleague, and this was I was still in an engineering role. In fact, I wasn't actually programming; it was a requirements engineering. So that was developing requirements, and I set on some standards bodies for these large telecommunications switching systems. So I worked for a company that had, put these switching systems in the network. So when you pick up the phone, you get a dial tone and various things like that, cell phone, mobile phone. So one of my colleagues, at this point in my career, the size of your office kind of indicated your level, okay? So I didn't know. I mean, I started at this company, I was somewhat new, and I started to build relationships. And they, not maybe a year later, a year and a half later, they were remodeling the offices. And so we were moved from like the third floor down to the first floor because they did the first floor first. And when we moved to the first floor, I had a bigger office, an
Mhm.
office that was the size of a couple of other people's offices. And one entered into my office and said, "Oh my gosh, I love your new space. It's so amazing." And I was like, "Okay, it's
Mhm.
not that much different from yours. Like, what's so special about it?" And she said, "Well, I don't know. It just looks great. And when did you get a promotion?" Like that. And I said, um, okay, are you asking me that? I said, if you must know, it was over a year ago, and now I think it's probably time for another one. So,
Mm.
and so knowing that completely changed her relationship with me because it was fun. We had a good relationship. We'd actually gone on a cruise together and done some things. But at that point, everything that I began to work on became a challenge because I got moved into another role where I did some work with all of the Spanish speaking countries for that, where we
Mhm.
had switches in that company. And working for someone that she wanted to work for.
Mhm.
And first of all, it was a horrible situation because this was a male female. And so this female had wanted more, I guess, from this male, a married man. Okay, so it was a really horrible
Oh
situation.
no.
So
The
yeah,
plot thickens.
it thickens. And I was trying to do work and configure switches, and there were things I had to do to go through her. Then she would literally withhold information from me,
Mm.
or and at the last minute come and give me things, which meant I had to stay up all night. I had to work all night. And we just had it, had an exchange one day in the office, something I never ever thought I would do. But we had an exchange, and everyone around was looking like, "Oh my God, like what's going on?" And so we were called into her manager's office, and we had a conversation. He later apologized to me for everything that was going on, and
Wow.
just kind of moved forward from there. And we our paths went differently from that point on. And I eventually left the company, but I think she stayed around for a while and did well. She was excellent at what she did. I'm just not sure like what was the issue. I mean, she had been at the company a number of years, right?
Yeah.
And I had come in a very short period and had been, elevated and
Mhm.
specifically moved away from certain people so that my light could shine. To me,
Yeah.
that is an amazing manager who
Mhm.
will put you where you can, blossom and grow, and that's exactly what happened. And when people realized what was happening, they weren't all that excited about it. So I'll
Ugh.
just leave it at that.
That is so frustrating. That is like, those are some of the worst kinds of experiences to go through when you
Yeah,
were friends, everything was cool, and then all of a sudden it wasn't.
yeah,
And you start getting weird vibes. You start getting, they're not greeting you warmly when they enter the office, and you feel
yes.
the energy shift. And it feels like gaslighting, because I don't know what your experiences was like, but when I've experienced this, it's been almost it's subtle at first, where you're almost like, am I tripping? Or,
Exactly.
it's like
Exactly.
you can't really articulate it into words. And if you tried to explain it to somebody at first, they would think you were nuts.
Yes.
And so you're
Yes.
just like, okay, maybe I'm tripping, because you don't want to believe that this is really happening. And then slowly it becomes more and more blatant, where you're like, oh no, I
Yeah.
wasn't tripping at all. This person is smiling in my face, but they are sabotaging me, actively sabotaging me. How do you encourage? Because I know you coach too.
Hmm.
And I'm sure you've probably had a lot of clients. Anytime you go to take any territory, the enemy, the devil is gonna fight you, y'all. Now, y'all know I'm an ordained minister, so if you new here, just know the Lord gonna come up somewhere, even though we're talking
Somewhere.
about business. So I'm just saying, anytime that God is elevating you, you are rising, you are going to face attacks from the enemy in various forms. And sometimes he uses, a lot of times, actually, he uses people that are closest to you. Ignore
Yeah.
my children if you hear that running around upstairs. But he'll use the people that are closest to you, because they know how to push your buttons the most. So it's really discouraging. How do you encourage clients that are actively dealing with this, be it from coworkers at work or from family members or people who they once thought were friends, that as soon as they started elevating, child, that energy shifted? And yeah,
Yeah.
how do you help them
Yeah.
get through that?
Yeah. So I think it's really important to realize that if everything you've done is integrous
Mhm.
and, above board, then it's more so their issue than yours.
Yes.
And so sometimes, even in the scenario I explained to you, I just covered that what I wound up doing is because we still had to work together.
Yeah.
What I wound up doing is just, we had a conversation. We just went for coffee and just really talked it out. Like, so this is where things are. We have to work together, right? We really need to, we have to come together to get to the end result. Okay. So
Mhm.
we don't have to, like, literally, we would, get together on the weekends or have dinner. And so we kind of let all of that go and just decided that, okay, we're going to be adults about this and make this a working relationship so that we can both thrive. Now, on the other hand, I did keep my eye. I double checked all the time. I double checked to make sure that, and I did question and I had questions. So I think it's really important to be able to come to an agreement. And in a case where you can't, you may have to escalate that to,
Yeah.
a higher level man, higher manager to manager. If you
Mhm.
happen to be that higher manager and it is going on with someone else, unless you're at the top of the organization, there's someone else that you can, escalate to, have a conversation with, come to some agreements at least to make to do the business properly. And
Yeah.
if someone is continually doing that, then they have these organizations called human resources. Okay.
Mhm.
So
HR is your friend.
HR is your friend. Okay? And you might
At least
even
they
need to,
should
they
be.
should be, right? They should be. And you might even need to engage them and share, here's some scenarios that are going on. And record keeping is a good thing to do. Yes, it puts the onus on you,
Mhm.
but you need to do that. and you can track things. I copied emails, I backed up things, all kinds of things like that to make sure that I was covering myself.
Yeah.
And I would follow up, informal conversations with email so that it's not a she said, he said, she said,
Yes.
whatever. So it takes some work. And while it's not ideal and you don't want to do it, it often comes along with things. It just kind of comes along with it. So
Yeah.
it takes some work. So my guidance is really try to have a conversation. And if that doesn't work, then, and agree like we have to work together. If that doesn't work, then you can escalate. And once bring in HR, and then you begin the whole escalation process. And once that person realizes that it's not just a one-on-one kind of a thing, what I've seen is it tends to change a bit. And ultimately, though, you have to come to the conclusion, is this a healthy environment for me? And
Ooh,
is it
that part.
something,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. Is it toxic or is it healthy? Am I angry when I leave here, or am I on pins and needles, getting ready to come? And even me, I'm an I dotter and a T crosser anyway, but I was double dotting and double crossing and, the
Yeah.
T's and I's. And so it's just one of those things that you might have to do. And for not for long term, but again, if it's toxic, then you can, try and find some place else to go, or, maybe even have someone else to talk to. But ultimately, you might just have to leave.
Yeah.
And that's the worst case scenario, right? It's the
Mhm.
worst case scenario. But sometimes leaving is not the worst thing that can happen. And sometimes, if you open up your eyes to what else is out there, whether it's in a different department or division within a major corporation, or somewhere else, another type of responsibility, then that's a good thing to do. But I also still think engaging HR is the right thing to do, because you have a toxic person that, whether you go or not, I mean, you may be the target of the day, and next time it may be someone else. So
Yes.
you do have to address those things, and I've actually seen people address things, and people who brought the toxicity promoted and moved on,
Mhm.
and just, on to make someone else miserable, right? So
Yeah.
but the reality of it is, if it gets too bad, and let's just go there. I mean, if it gets too bad and a person leaves and they threaten to sue, then most often that person is kind of held accountable, right? So,
Yeah.
ideally, you won't have to go through all that, because it takes a lot to get there. It takes a lot to
Yeah.
get there, and you want to be able to work things out. You want to be able to work it out and be adult about it and work well together. But let's face it, I mean, we come from different walks, we have different experiences. We don't
Mhm.
really know the people that we work with per se, because a lot of times people are not authentic,
Yeah.
when they show up. And they're battling things that might have happened in their childhood, or they're battling the fact that they had an argument with a spouse, or they may be going through a divorce, or the dog died, or any number of
Anything.
things.
Yeah.
And so it's good to kind of start with a conversation and try and work things out. And don't just relegate, well, that's just how she is, or who he is, or whatever, when you don't really know the person. At least give it a good try, and then you can go on from there. I've always at least tried to understand, right? I can't
Yeah.
say in all cases I did, but I would try to understand. And I think, in some cases people have respect for that, but in other cases it's like, who does she think she is? But then, once I give it that try, then, we both have to move on, because I'm here literally to accomplish a goal, to do a job. And the truth is, I didn't really come to work to make friends. I didn't. So, you know, if that is a benefit, then that's awesome. But that's not, they don't pay me to make friends, right? They pay me to
Mm.
get something done. And I think work well in a team environment, and, reach goals and objectives, grow others, inspire others, all those different things. But, you know, it's not like you have to like me and hang out with me after work every day.
I
So,
love that. I love that. Like, if I make some friends, that's a bonus, but that is not what I'm here to do. Here to do a job, excel at it. That let's talk about that for a minute because that's how I used to be before I went into entrepreneurship for myself. I was always very cordial and friendly with my coworkers, but at the end of the day, I used to be a school teacher. At the
Okay.
end of the day, I'm there to teach these kids, and I was a special education teacher, so there was a whole other level of
Yes.
paperwork and things that needed to be done and working on
IEPs,
IEPs.
etc.
Yes, girl, yes. Oh my gosh. So the teachers they would do at most schools. I don't know. I won't say all schools, but at a lot of schools, the teachers kind of fraternize after work. They go out for happy hour. I don't know what this thing is with teachers in happy hour, but I never got into that. And the job does make you want to drink, even if you are not a person that drinks. But I just never, I was like, no, I'm okay. I'm good. I never got into the hanging out in the teacher's lounge and getting all
Mhm.
the tea and the gossip. And I never did that. And so I was kind of looked at as by some people, not by all people. It's just like, oh, she thinks she's better than us. Like she thinks she's too good to hang out with us or whatever. Like she never wants to. I don't know. Cause I never did that. I'm like, I'm not here for that.
Yeah.
So that was just how it was in the education industry. But did you find that just having that attitude, like I want to come, I want to do a good job and do my thing and go home, did you find that some people misunderstood you because of that or felt like, oh, she's intimidating. She's not buddy buddy with us, she's not socializing or anything, or I don't know.
Well, so that's another interesting question because I I was friendly.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I just I didn't bring a lot of personalness right into the office per se.
Because it's not
Uh,
the place for it. That's
no,
just my
not
thinking. I don't know.
right. It's not.
Yeah.
And over time, I shared more with, people that I worked with for a longer period of
Hmm.
time. So I was always friendly, and the groups that I worked with, we more often did lunch than happy hours. So, I mean, who doesn't want to go to lunch, right? Especially if your manager is paying, right? So we did a lot of lunches, and my really expanded, my palate a lot. So we try a lot of different types of foods, and I worked in, really diverse organizations, and so we try a lot of different types of foods and whatnot. And so so in that respect, I was, um, you know, for the most part, okay.
Okay.
But where I differed was that I didn't celebrate Halloween,
Okay.
and I say Merry Christmas.
Hmm.
I don't say Happy Holidays per se. If I do say Happy Holidays, I'll say Merry Christmas and have a great holiday.
Yeah.
So people knew I don't celebrate Halloween. Don't put, anything Halloween related in my office, on my door. And I don't want even Halloween candy because I'm particular about, that holiday.
Yeah.
Um, you
Me
know,
too, by the way.
yeah.
I
Okay.
feel you. I feel you.
So people knew, and people, I think over time respected it, and just like we're in a culture of where the cultures were so different. People were from so many different places around the world. There was like for Muslims, there was a prayer room for Muslims to go in and pray,
Mm.
the times of the day that they might be in the office. People, respected Ramadan and all kinds of things like that. And one of the things I found, I said, wow, we tolerate everything, but what about Jesus, right? Why are we? I mean, if you're gonna be tolerant, then you have to like take it all in, right? You don't
Yeah.
have to love it or adapt to it or anything like that, but you have to at least let it coexist with everything else
Everything
that's
else.
coexisting within the
Hmm.
environment. And so, for me, that was a really important part of who I am. At one point in my career, we worked so much that I didn't go to church for, I don't know, months on end. And finally,
Hmm.
because we were constantly working, our manager would bring up food up there on Saturdays and Sundays because we were constantly working.
Hmm.
And so I, at one point, stopped. I said, I'll be in after church.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, oh, yeah, she won't be here until 1 or whatever, you know. So, because it was important to me to, somewhere I thought, let me just get myself back together.
Yes.
So while I had my own, um, I was friendly. I tried to fit in, to a degree, uh,
Mhm.
and definitely so I could learn, so that I could do my job well. But I wasn't a happy hour person. I definitely did lunch. I did go to a few happy hours, like we had meetings, right?
Mhm.
Important because there were shifts and changes coming and occurring. And I just, had like some ginger ale or something. Me personally, I do not like to see people inebriated or intoxicated, over drinking, whatever word you want to fill in. I
Yeah.
tend to, and I've noticed with me over the years, it causes me to lose respect for someone because I feel
Ooh.
like you don't have self-control, right?
Yeah.
If you had three and that fourth one is going to throw you over the edge, or you're going to lose
Mhm.
it and start repeating yourself 1,000 times and slurring your words and those kinds of things, stop at three. Okay. We all
Mhm.
have to see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or Monday or whatever day, right? Um, so I feel like I found my space to fit in, right? And I went sometimes, not not all the time, but I lunch. Hey, I'm there for lunch, especially if we're going all different types of Asian foods and East Indian, South Indian food. So, but in truth, I don't I feel like I fit in where they accepted where I felt like I fit in, and certain things they just didn't invite me to, and that was fine. It was great, and it was fine for me because I had other things going on outside of work anyway. Yeah, but I will say I can see where that might be the case with teachers. I actually have
Yeah.
sub before, sub, and I still sub sometimes now.
Okay.
Uh, I will do that. I love working with the children and helping, different things. In fact, I will be in a school helping out with some things tomorrow,
Okay.
um, because I really want to reach girls, right?
Mhm.
Before they, um, but I can see perhaps maybe because the day ends early for them, right? It starts early, and ends early.
It
And if you're
ended early for most
elementary,
teachers, but for special ed teachers, we were always the last people in the building because of all our
okay,
paperwork.
okay. I was gonna say, so if you're in the building early and if you're an elementary school teacher and you're on all day,
Yeah.
and you may just want to go somewhere and breathe afterwards. But the one thing I didn't like to do, even in our breathing moments, is constantly whine about stuff. I'm not,
Yeah.
it just, okay, let's voice it. And so everyone had an opportunity, and let's see if we can't help it get better. Then, I mean, we need to find some way to help it get better. That's my thing.
Yeah.
What can we do to make it different, or just accept it and, just live with it, but we don't have to constantly complain about it. So.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can relate to so much of what you said, especially the seeing people inebriated. I did that, and that's probably I didn't think about that until you just said that, but I think that an experience I had years ago probably cemented that for me. The one time I was like, "Okay," and I went to a staff Christmas party. The girl, them people was in there turned up. Like, my school principal was lit. When I tell you that man was lit,
Oh my
he
goodness.
was lit. And then I saw him get in his car and drive home, and
Oh, no way.
I was furious. I was like, who did he ride with? Did he drive himself with? Wait, like someone needs to take his keys. Like he can't get in the car and drive home. Like,
Yeah.
and when I found out that he did in fact get in his car and drive home,
Wow.
I could never look at him the same way after that. It was a crazy Christmas party. He was doing that. The doggone school secretary was flirting with my man, and I was ready to punch her in the face.
Oh,
Like, I was like, ignorance is bliss. I did not need to see this side of you
right.
people. Cause now I'm gonna be looking at y'all side-eyed when I get in the school tomorrow morning. And he came to work. It was over the weekend. He came to work and he was still hungover from I was just like, and
Yeah.
I did. I lost a lot of respect for him
Yeah.
um after that because you did not have to have that much to drink, and then you definitely should not have drove yourself home. You could have killed yourself, you could have killed somebody else. And how am I supposed to respect anything that you say. You know what I mean? Like I'm looking at your ability to make decisions or judge things. I'm supposed to be looking up to you, as a boss figure and you okay. I don't know what just happened.
I
Did
don't
it just
know.
go
You,
out?
you dropped off.
I dropped off and I was like, the Wi-Fi is still on. What the heck just happened? That was weird. I was getting ready to call my husband, like, hey, help. What just happened?
Yeah, I
Anyway,
looked and I said, well, still in her meeting, so I'll just wait.
yeah, I was like, the meeting is still going, but we'll edit all that out. Anywho, but yeah, it ended up that experience made me just really like, see, this is why I don't kick it with y'all after work. Seeing y'all all day is enough.
Yeah,
And ever
and I
since
think,
then, I've just kind of been like, no, I'll find a couple of people that I feel like we're like minded and these people are cool. And I'll hang out with those people, like you said, do.
yeah, yeah.
But everybody, I'm like, mm-mm.
I feel like even on another level, because principals are, I don't know if this is entirely accurate, but like public servants, right? And so
Yeah, yeah.
if you, and my husband is a high school principal,
Mhm.
so it's like if you, even if he didn't kill anyone or hurt anyone, even if got stopped and,
Mhm.
tested and couldn't pass the sobriety test, then that's a huge thing. He can lose his job and
Yeah.
okay, So just that whole, um, I don't know, just maybe the 30 seconds it would have taken to say, hey, do I feel okay to drive? Okay, no, let me call an Uber. Would have been
Mhm.
worth it,
And I
right?
don't even know if Uber was out back then because that
Oh,
was a long
okay.
time ago. That was like,
Taxis were always
yeah,
around in our lives, so
something, but
yeah, or ride home with someone else or whatever it might be. But yeah, that's not wise. And so yeah, I tend not to like I said, I don't see people the same way after that. And so
yeah.
I prefer to be enamored with who you are and just I don't want to see that part, right? So,
Right. Yeah. Anywho, so let's switch gears to a little bit for how we can, because we can't control other people. We can only control ourselves. So when we're in these environments and we're working in these where we're around other high potential leaders and other executives, we can't control whatever insecurities they have,
exactly.
however they may perceive us as a threat because of whatever we bring to the table. But how can we maintain ourselves so that regardless of what's going on around us, we're always operating from a collaborative spirit and we're not getting caught up in the craziness of the competition of it all? What advice would you give to women on that?
So my advice, it still goes back to, being clear on who you are and what you want, why you're there. And regardless of the scenario or the situation, that you are really only in control of you, like you said. And
Yeah.
so to give some thought to it, because this is not something that's new under the sun,
Yeah.
to maybe even ponder over some things. If you have not experienced these things, think about what if you are in a scenario like I described, a previous coworker.
Mhm.
How would you handle it? You either like it's either going to be, oh no, she didn't, or it's going to be, one of those kinds of things, or it's going to be like, okay, I see. So let me just, figure out what's going to be the best move here for me as well as for the organization, the work that we're doing. And you also have to sort of network around and know who knows whom and who's the favorite child of whom and those kinds of things, because you kind of have to, watch who you put your mouth on, and we can use that.
Mhm.
I know you understand that. So let's use it
Mhm.
in a corporate environment. Watch who you put your mouth on, because you don't know who is, like I said, related to whom, or who's a friend of who else, or something like that. So you have to control yourself. Now, when you
Yeah.
leave there, if you need to scream in the car or
Are your
release it,
therapist?
right? Yeah, yeah. Call someone or whatever. Like release it, because you don't need to hold on to those negative emotions. They really do impact our health, our
Yes.
organs, and so on and so forth. So you don't need to hold on to it. But I think what you have to do is have a strategy and a game plan.
Yeah.
even if someone is watching us having this conversation right now, I highly advise to have a strategy and a game plan for if something like that occurs. It's
Mhm.
good to know your HR, maybe business partner, or the person that's over your organization, your department, or however the company's organized. You should know those. You should know that person. It's good to know them, and it's not like you have to hang out in their office, but
Mhm.
you know, set up a one-on-one with them and just kind of get to know them and share what it is you want to do, and build relationships. So I highly recommend doing that. And if something like that occurs, you have some places that you can go, right? I really say I recommend not taking it personally, because
Yeah,
when you
that's
take it
important.
personally, you begin to move differently. And
Mm.
this is about, it's not about, even though it may be a personal attack, don't respond. And, first of all, don't react,
Mm.
respond, right? And respond, strategically, right? So, if you have built trust in your organization, if there are people, whom you can confide and get some guidance from, then it's time to call them up, or it's time to spend a minute with them and see what they will tell you to do. Each organization is different. Again, I am an advocate of trying to have a conversation with the person and then
Yeah.
following it up with an email, right? So that, and then you might even copy them and their manager. If this is an issue that's kind of gone on for a while, your manager, their manager, you, and send it to them, right? And even bring in an HR person, right? But
Mhm.
I would definitely not go so much, I wouldn't spend a lot of time um, trying to walk on eggshells and things like that.
Yeah.
You have to handle it, because if you don't, it's a distraction and
Mhm.
it can impede your work, and you can start to make mistakes and various things like that. So, depending on what industry you're in, what work you do. So, you don't want that to be the case. You really want to be able to kind of shut this thing down, or at least get to some amicable solution
Yeah.
as quickly as possible. So, and I'm not saying go against your morals and your principles. In fact, I advocate not doing that.
Yeah.
Actually, don't go against your morals and your principles, but really, try and be more collaborative, cooperative. And if that doesn't work, then you're not necessarily you're not going to go into competition mode, but you
Yeah.
do need to go on offense. Okay.
Okay.
So offense is when you start to talk to them, but then after that, you may need to start to make some defensive moves to cover
Mhm.
yourself and protect yourself. Don't worry about it. That's why I say think about it. Have a strategy, have a plan for if something like that were to happen, which most of us have encountered something like that. So at some point, you know that you may encounter someone who is competitive, or who is
Mhm.
maybe just doesn't like you because everybody else likes you, right? You just
That happens
have
too.
such a
Yep.
bubbly personality, or for whatever reason, that maybe I don't know, your teeth are straighter. I mean, these are ridiculous things, right? But I'm saying it's some of the stuff is like ridiculous, right? And people say, well, I just don't like her. I don't know. It's something about her. Well, something about
Mhm.
her, like what, right? So I'm saying
They have
so.
to say that because they can't come out and admit they're just jealous of you, so they
Right.
have to invent something. "Well,
They
she's
have to make
fake."
something
What
up.
does that even
Right.
mean?
Right. So all of that. I mean, so, I don't like, I don't know. She's always wearing these bright colors. Well, who does that? Like it's blinding. Someone told me once, wow, if I'd known I needed to wear my sunglasses, I would have brought them. And I said, wow, if I'd known you needed them, I would have called you up and told you. So, so we went ha ha ha
Oh
and
my
then just went
god.
on our way. Okay.
Wow.
Because this person was always doing things like that, saying things like that. So I said, you know what, today, let me just share what I feel. I
Mhm.
feel like if I'd known you needed sunglasses, you who also wear bright colors, then I would have sort of emailed you, called you up or something. But can we just have a great day now? That came into your office to ask a question, okay? So, I think at some point it becomes ridiculous, but in reality, it is good to have a strategy in
Yeah.
case something like that occurs. And
Mm.
it's good to know, how you might escalate things. I always advocate going to the person first. And if
Mhm.
that doesn't work, then, you have other elements of your plan that you can go to,
Yeah.
um, and not let it get to be a horrible back and forth. He said, she said, HR has to open up an investigation and a case and
Yeah.
all of those sorts of things. So I've seen those happen, but that's why I'm
Mhm.
saying it's good to have a strategy in
Yeah.
place.
And
Yeah.
I love all of that. That is awesome. I love that you talk about knowing who you are and getting clarity on that because that actually nips all of this silliness in the bud in terms of you feeling, any woman out there that has felt, another sister being elevated is somehow means there's less of the pie for you, or, you're not going to get something now because this woman has something. Getting clear on who you are and how God designed you and all of the unique giftings and things that you come with, really
Yes.
sitting with those and just celebrating yourself and your
Yes.
uniqueness
Yes.
squashes all of that.
Mhm.
Squashes
And
all of that.
it absolutely does. And, you may be sometimes, so we have so much conditioning in our lives, right?
Mhm.
Families, I don't know, colleagues. Could you hold on a second?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
God, you scared the heck out of me.
Call 15
I'm
times.
on an interview.
I still call. I'm just telling you. I call about 15 times, you know?
Oh my God, my husband came in the house and I'm like, someone is in the house. So please edit this out. And please
Oh
edit
no,
it.
it's fine. Rodney's gonna have a fun time editing this one because the camera cut off in the middle of it. The kids sound like they're gonna come falling through the ceiling because they're up there stomping around. I'm like, so this girl, don't
I
worry,
am
we'll
like,
we'll
someone
edit
is
it.
in my house. And like, okay, what am I
Like I
gonna
hear a dog. Like, what
what am
is
I gonna
happening?
take with me? I need a bat, something. But anyway, yeah, edit that out. So what I was saying is that we have so much conditioning in our lives, and it could
Yeah.
come from family, friends, TV, colleagues, work environment, so on and so forth.
Mhm.
And we are told to want things, right?
Yeah.
Things have been put in front of us. I mean, look at TV commercials, even TV
Mhm.
commercials. They want you to drive a Volvo or a Jaguar or a Chevy or whatever. So there's so much conditioning in our lives that sometimes we're not really clear on
Yeah.
who we are, what is it that we want, and why. And we get on these paths, like perhaps, maybe I make this road in my career because I know I'll always have a job or I'll be able to make good money.
Mhm.
And maybe it's not even where you really want to be, but you compromised and decided I'll go over here and you're doing well. And after so much time, you're doing so well, but on the inside of you, what you really wanted to do is dying. And you are
Yeah.
so caught up in this that other people's opinions and externally, and what will they say if I leave, or what will they think, or or how it's just we get caught up in so much that we
Yeah.
lose ourselves. And it's
Mhm.
so important to really know and to stay grounded in who you are, what you really want, and why. Because I mean, even myself, having moved people along in certain paths, someone can just sweep you along, and then you look back and one day you go, how did I get here? And what is this all about? What is it all for? Is this it? So we really need to, that clarity is so important. And I feel like it's foundational to living a life of authenticity and really, moving in the space and the place that you want to be in. And
Yeah.
so, it's not like, okay, well, I always wanted to play professional basketball. I should be authentic and go off and try to figure out how to play. Well, I am, 5'1", so I'm totally not going to be in the WNBA, right? But so what about basketball did I like? Why did I like basketball? Sometimes you peel back the onion on these things and
Mhm.
you look and you go, hey, I didn't even really like that. I just did that because I wanted to hang around my friends and they really
Mm.
liked it. it, or I just wanted to spend extra time with my father and he liked football, and so I learned to like football and all these sorts of things. And so we get ourselves in these places and don't even know, like, we don't remember how or why. And we do things, we started doing things, we do things that we started out as good and necessary, and we've done them for years, and we don't even really like doing them anymore, and we think they're necessary, and we won't stop because we think someone needs it. And on the other side, someone may be wondering, I wonder why she still does that. We don't even need that anymore. So it matters if you take time. We don't question ourselves. We don't question the things we
Mm,
think. So we need to ask ourselves questions and sit with it and not just say, this is who I am. This is the way it's just going to be. That's how they are. But we need to question things and look at things and examine things. And a lot of times, what we think isn't even true,
mm,
or at least not
yeah.
anymore. Things have changed, or
Hmm.
what we see isn't even really what's really going on.
Hmm.
And so there's so many reasons why clarity is uber important in our
Very.
lives, in our careers, in our relationships, and all of that, so that we can really bring the best, to bring our best, not just what's expected to bring, but really what is the best of us. I read some research that said the number one regret people have on their deathbed is living life the way they were expected to live, not the way they
Oof.
wanted to live. And so,
Yes.
okay, really? So now we know this. So it's our responsibility now to figure out, so how can that not be our story? And
Yeah.
so my goal is to help that not to be, as many women as possible, for that not to be their story, because they got the clarity, they show up authentically. And even showing up authentically, you can build trust and increase communication. There is compassion. You can help
Hmm.
develop others. There's so many benefits to doing that. And when I was in corporate America, we used to talk about bringing your whole self to work. I don't know about bringing your whole self, but what I do know is if you bring your authentic self, right, there's a difference there. And I don't think authentic and whole are the same thing.
Yeah.
So that the clarity component is so important. Or you wake up one day questioning that, why am I here? How did I get here? Do I really want
Yeah.
this? And then sometimes if you make rash decisions, you sever things like cutting a steak, right, with a butter knife, right? And you don't have to necessarily go along that way. You can come up with a plan, and you don't have to end relationships or anything like that. You just start to show up authentically. You just share, from who you are. And if it's not received well, then okay. That's
Yeah.
not really your problem. I've had relationships end because we have different viewpoints on things.
Mm,
And while they were relationships I thought would go the distance, right, in business and in life, some of them didn't. And
yeah.
so for me, some of that was hard, to break a relationship and not have a conversation with someone you used to talk to every other day, or at least 2 or 3 times a week.
Hmm.
And some of it was hard and challenging, but I really felt like it was the best thing for both of us.
Hmm.
If we were not going to, I don't mind if you and I don't fully agree on something. Now, if we're
Hmm.
diametrically opposed, well, that's something different.
Yeah.
But if you and I don't agree wholly, completely, totally, I am okay with that. We can even joke about it, or I'll stay away
Hmm.
from the space. But, if you have to end a relationship because of it, then okay, then I'm not going to pretend to change the belief,
Yeah.
especially unwarranted or unfounded. And so,
Mm.
yeah, it's not always easy. It's none of this is always easy. So let's be
That's true.
really clear. We're talking about it like it might be, but
It's challenging. If it were
it is
easy, everyone
challenging.
would do it and we wouldn't have
Everyone
these
can do it,
problems.
right? But you can do it, and you can still, you know, you'll wake up the next day, right? And life goes on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Have the tough conversations with yourself, your inner
Yeah.
self, and with others.
And
Get
with others.
clear on who you are, what you want, what you don't want. and move accordingly. Love it, love it. So let's talk about your, is it a podcast or the Reignite Her Roundtable?
Yeah, so that the pulling it's actually pulling back the curtain on
Mhm.
the exodus of women leaders from corporate America.
Ooh,
So
okay.
it started out so during COVID, and it actually the first conversation I had was during Women's History Month. So
Okay.
it started out as whenever I was in corporate, we did huge things for International Women's Day, Women's History
Mhm.
Month, those things. So I wanted to do something outside of, in my own business, in my own space. And so I reached out to some women leaders, and just had a conversation because I'd seen the latest report on women in the workplace from McKinsey,
Mhm.
and COVID added another dynamic to that with women, working from home, and now, you're the leader in your company, you're the mom, you're the school teacher, you're the nurse, you're the counselor, you're the dog walker, all these different things. So it was a conversation that started out about, what can we do to help retain women leaders and help them to thrive and not just survive.
Yeah.
And so it just started out as something that I did during Women's History Month, and I've continued to do it not as often as I like, but I have continued to do it, and I'm thinking of, how I can do it even more.
Mhm.
Um, I still keep my finger on the pulse of like what's going on with women in corporate America, in the workplace, and so on. And yeah, my goal was to really be able to come up with some actionable solutions that we
Yeah.
could put in place. I know the McKinsey report always makes some recommendations, and sometimes people read that and they go, "Oh, these are great suggestions," but don't really do much about it.
Yeah.
So the idea was that we could really, from people who are on the inside, be able to come up with something. And
Yeah.
yeah, so that first one was people from across the industry,
Okay.
uh, different industries. And I've continued that. I have the most recent one was one of my former managers at Intel, the one that brought me into diversity,
Awesome.
who was a marketing executive at Microsoft when I talked to her, but now she's moved to a startup company.
Mhm.
So, and I have some others coming up as well. So I am excited about it. I'm trying to get a
Good.
well-rounded group of people to have the conversation, and let's just talk about it, and let's be truthful about the mental load.
Mhm.
Let's be truthful about what it really takes to be in these spaces, in these places, and how I'm like really on a mission to help women thrive. And so
Yeah.
how authentic are you really showing up? And this my entire message for this year is really around authentic leadership. There's various leadership styles, autocratic, democratic, bureaucratic, coach,
Mhm.
those things. But even in those styles or management type styles, are you really being true to who you are? Are you being
Yeah.
true to your values? Are you being true? Are you holding to principles? Do people trust you? Can they believe in you? Are you exuding compassion? Various things like that. So it really is, pardon me, really is about um, how to help women leaders just be really comfortable in the space, being who they are,
Mhm.
not adapting to adjusting at one place. This is an aside. When I got married, I was engaged, and we set a wedding date. I went on a hunt for a counselor
Okay.
because I didn't want to be the same person in my marriage that I was at work. I felt like
Mm.
my husband is a heart-centered person,
Yeah.
and I feel like, he has to be an educator, right? And so I was literally flying from Arizona to Dallas for to meet with this counselor that came highly recommended twice a month.
Okay.
And she did a few virtual sessions with me, but that wasn't her thing. Like you had to show up or she
Mhm.
wouldn't work with you because I just felt like I didn't want to be, laying down the gauntlet, bossy or, trying
Mhm.
to run things, rule things, all that sort of thing. No, I wasn't putting my skills and talents on the back burner, but I just felt like my husband, I wanted to be a good wife to him,
Yeah.
not like he was a business colleague and this was a business relationship,
Yeah.
right? So there's parts of it that are business, let's face it, right? In a marriage, there's parts of it that are business. You got to handle stuff.
Yeah.
But I just didn't want um, to be that same way at home. And so, yeah, so I did have counseling before we got married. And I mean, it was good. It was good. She gave me space to be me.
Mhm.
And it was just good to talk it out, right? To
Yeah.
talk it through.
That takes a
Um,
lot of self-awareness to know that you need to do that.
yeah,
I commend you on that because a lot of times we do have these personas we take on at work that are necessary for us to be good at our jobs and do what we need to do. But knowing when to turn that off
yeah.
when we get home with our friends and family, sometimes it's not as easy or seamless. So kudos to you for doing that. That's huge.
And I feel like I was mostly true to my values.
Hmm.
I definitely do. I also feel like, I spoke up when I felt like things weren't going to work. And once
Hmm.
one of my managers called me the Velvet Hammer. Um,
I love
and
that.
so it kind of stuck. But when you show up that way, people can trust you and they know you and they know they can come to you and they know that, they know what they're going to get. So I'm not a yes girl, right?
Yeah.
And I don't even want that in my friends. I don't want a yes girl. I want if I do something wrong, you come to me and you tell me, please do it in love, because I prefer it that way. And even if it doesn't come out in the nicest way, I do take some time to ponder over what might I have done or said to have led this person to say what they said back to me, or what given them that impression. So I do. I'm constantly uh, going inside and being very introspective. So
Mhm.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it, love it, love it. So, are you the Reignite Her Roundtable? Are you going to do that? Is it on YouTube or it's just on? I know there's a website that it's on because I think it's fabulous. She's interviewed some great women on there, and I think you all should go check it out for more of these kinds of discussions with some amazing women doing amazing things. I know you said you're not doing it as much, but where can people go to find the things that you have done with that?
So it's at rhlroundtable.com. So RHL
Okay.
stands for Reignite Her Light. So
Okay.
it's rhlroundtable.com. And I
Okay.
have given some thought to making it a podcast or putting some of it on YouTube. I'm actually building out a YouTube channel
Good.
now, and
Good.
will be one of the playlists will probably include a lot of the comments and the feedback from maybe even, fully those
Mhm.
conversations. But yeah, so we're strategizing on how to best use or share the information more broadly.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. And then also, where can people connect with you and find out more about what you're doing? Or if people want to work with you, how can they connect with Dr. Kim?
So the best way is on email for me,
Mhm.
and that is Kim at reigniteherlight.com. So
Okay.
Kim at reignite her light. And I stress light, not life. Sometimes
Mhm.
people hear the T, but light.com. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. I have enjoyed this discussion. This has really just been so inspiring and real and authentic. And thank you so much for sharing your collaboration over competition, words of advice, and wisdom with the Victorious Living Solutions audience. This has been awesome.
It's been my pleasure. It's been exciting. I love the conversation. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Let us know how this episode has encouraged you. Make sure to visit victoriousliving.solutions.com and smash that subscribe button there as well so you can stay in the know of everything that we have coming up. Thanks again for tuning in. Keep living victoriously. Goodbye, everybody.